By the way, I tried to connect from the other link that you sent, and you couldn't hear me. So maybe he's having some problems there.
So you connected with the link sent by Zoom?
No, by you, just before the meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, no, I see Peter, it's already promoted to panelist. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining. I think we have now also Peter in the call. Hello, Peter. How are you?
Hi there. Good, good.
Hi.
Good to be here. How are you guys?
Hi, Peter. How are you doing?
So, guys, thank you so much for joining. I will introduce very soon the panelists for this LinkedIn live stream. As you know, we are streaming live on many platforms, on LinkedIn, YouTube. So we will have hopefully a lot of people joining. I would wait only 1 minute for because people are just now getting notifications through YouTube and LinkedIn, so to give them the time to join. And I would like to tell also to all the people that are connecting through Zoom that they can use the chat during the session to write down questions that if hopefully if we have time at the end of the session, we will address a few of them. So for all the people that are joining this live streaming through Zoom, you can, if you have questions for our panelists, or in general, if you want to do some comments, you can write them down in the chat session, and we can address those questions later on. So I think we are good to start. I would like first of all to introduce and to give like my thank you to the two panelists that are going to be speaking today. We are having Guy Morgenstern, who is the CTO and one of the founder of C3, very successful agtech startup. And we have Peter Krueger, who is CEO and managing director of startup bootcamp foodtech, and is also involved in other venture capital firms that are investing in agtech. He will tell for us more. So, Guy, let's start with you. Would you like to introduce shortly yourself? And,
Sure. I'll introduce myself and a bit about C3. If I can share just a few slides, that would be great. Is that okay?
Yes. You should be able to do it now, if you want.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, my name is Guy. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
We can see it now, yes.
Great. So, thank you for having me. Great pleasure. So, a bit about C3. The company, we founded the company in 2017. We operate, we have offices in Brazil, South Africa, and the United States. We basically handle today around 800,000 acres and managing over 160 million trees already. And we are focusing mainly on permanent crops, more specifically citrus, almonds, pistachio, avocado, and other likewise permanent crops. And we operate in a few countries today, in South America, in California, Greece, South Africa, and other places as well. Basically, we started the company with the engaging with a lot of permanent crops growers, seeing their challenges with weather and climate change, the high cost of resources, and also the challenges in making decisions because of the factors that are going into or impact factors that are going into their yield and production. All that stuff basically, and without data, makes their life very tough, and therefore their ability to make a data-driven decision is very hard, and they need to guess most of the time and rely on their intuition. We decided to, like engineers actually, we decided to look at the problem and basically digitize the farms, the fields, and we decided to take an approach of identify every single tree. So basically, create a huge database for the growers and of course for ourselves, where every tree is basically a unique entity, and we can track this tree, we can see symptoms, and over time, and then from that create powerful applications for the farmer. We call it an operating system because it has different flavors in different areas in the world. The needs of growers, even of the same crop in different areas of the world, are much different. And therefore, we love to look at it as a kind of an operating system level, and then on top of it, a suite of applications that serve the specific growers. Just as an example, citrus grower in Brazil may be interested in a specific disease in Brazil, like citrus greening, bindweeds, and things like that. And on the other end, in California, you will see stubborn disease or fruit estimation needs that are different than you see in Brazil. So this is why you need some sort of a very powerful infrastructure that you can create applications on top of it. In general sense, our technology is, this is kind of a general scheme of our technology. We collect data from different sources. Most of them are imagery sources. We basically associate those information sources into specific trees, and then we create a classification for symptoms and things that are interested for our customers, and we provide insights and applications that they can take into their day-to-day operation. Just a last slide about AI. We use AI. This is a very powerful tool today, and basically we use AI very extensively in our operation. It's our main vehicle to identify symptoms, and so we have dozens of models running on production to identify different disease and count fruits and all that stuff. We have a very strong, streamlined, continuous learning framework to support the change in the environment condition, the light condition, and all that stuff. You always need to add more data. You always need to adjust your models in order for them to be current and accurate. And also because we have created a huge database of trees and their symptoms, it allows us to basically create a very robust experiment system for detecting new stuff. So that's something that we are very proud of, and it's really at the core of our solution. Yeah, that's it basically. This is us.
Thank you so much, Guy. Very interesting what you are doing at C3. This is obviously a very interesting case study and of how artificial intelligence is changing precision farming nowadays. I would like to give the floor now to Peter. Thank you so much again for accepting our invitation. So please, Peter, obviously introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you, and it would be, I think, very interesting for our audience to learn a little bit more about the point of view of investors in agtech startups. What kind of interesting AI application in precision farming you came across recently, and what are the criteria or, for that, according to you, can make an AI solution very successful.
Okay, great. So first of all, thank you again for inviting me here. Very excited to be here. So yeah, my name is Peter Krueger. I am half South African, half Polish, born in Milan, Italy, grew up in Rome, Italy, so literally a Roman. That said, to make things even more complicated, I studied theoretical physics when I was a kid, and I was studying with Professor Parisi, which recently was awarded the Nobel Prize for complex systems. And why is this relevant? Because at the time, and we're talking about mid-90s, we were doing neural networks. We're doing neural networks, complex systems, of course. But then I completely got seduced by the internet, which was booming at the time. So, decided, no, my way is the entrepreneur's way. And so went through all the dot-com boom and bust, and had my failures, acquisitions, and all that kind of stuff. And then about now more than 10 years ago, I started doing my small little investments, some of which were pretty successful. And so about 8 years ago, 8 years ago, I decided to launch an accelerator. And that was a time in which, big names were more or less the same as you have today. Y Combinator, Techstars, 500 startups, and so on. But most accelerators were very generalists. And instead, I came across these guys from Startup Bootcamp who had this crazy idea of doing vertical accelerators. So I acquired a license to operate the vertical accelerator with having no idea what I was going to do. And it took me a couple of years to scout around, especially here in Italy, try to see if there was anything resonating. And of course, food and food tech was, starting to come up because you already had some pretty interesting stories in delivery. That was kind of becoming pretty fashionable. Italy, of course, has this, renowned track record in food. And so we felt, let's do food, let's do an accelerator, an international accelerator, and, in food, and let's see what happens. Turns out that, after 3 years of investment, we invested in 25 companies from as far east as Indonesia to as far west as Silicon Valley. Very successful. My investors, very, very happy. And so now in the last couple of years, since the world has completely transformed, when we launched Startup Bootcamp Food Tech, there were 4 accelerators globally doing this kind of thing in this space. Now, the last time someone counted, I think, came out with 230 accelerators, incubators, startup factories operating in the agri-food space. So it's an enormous amount of stuff coming out. And at the same time, we also saw massive allocation of money in VC. So just to give you a few, figures, when we started, like that was 2016, I think the total amount of money that was invested was something like $3 billion globally. Last year, the year of the pandemic, it was about 30 billion. And that was a plus 30% from the year before, the year of the pandemic. And this year, the first 6 months, we're already at 24 billion. Which means, of course, growing very fast. But how much does it represent, compared to other sectors? Well, it's more than 10% of total VC expenditure globally. So this is an incredibly appealing area of investment for investors. What are the main drivers? Well, the main drivers are basically 3. First of all, this is probably the biggest industry in the world. Okay. It represents, depending on where you go, something between 20 and 30%, even more, of a national GDP. And this has been also one of the most resistant to disruption. But of course, now technology is coming, enabling technology like AI is available to bring new efficiency, new disruptive models, and so on. So this is the main reason why, you know, we're seeing this appearing now. But of course, there are also a couple of other reasons. Another one, impact. Impact is, you know, increasingly driving interest by investors. Look, this is not pro bono, okay? So there's a very strong awareness among investors, big, small, that we are transitioning our industrial model and we have to go to a less, let's say, impactful or negatively impactful model. And of course, this opens up tremendous opportunities, tremendous opportunities. If you start introducing regulation that puts caps on how much food you can produce or how much fish you can farm and so on, this puts huge strain on the existing production cycles. And there's only one way you can solve that as a producer, and it's by bringing new technology. And so this huge pressure, especially regulatory pressure, is bringing huge opportunities for new ventures to come up and so on. Now, just to complete my quick intro, as there is so much money going in, let's say, early stage, Series A, venture capital, and so on, and so much origination, you would say, hey, great. So, you know, no problem. In fact, there is still a big problem. The main problem is in the seed stage investing, where companies are still struggling a lot. Very good companies can take a lot of time to raise their capital. And so my main focus now with a new fund that we're launching called AgFood Ventures is going to be precisely on that. Technology applied to the food industries, all of them, agri, to the store and to the table, but at seed stage, because we see a massive need in that space. It's a little bit like, you know, where do I want to be today, where I was like a few years ago? Well, a few years ago, there weren't accelerators, great stuff. Now I want to be in the seed stage. So now in terms of AI applications, of course, you know, AI is, it opens up opportunities almost everywhere. You know, then depending also what you mean by AI, you know, is it unsupervised learning, you know, supervised learning, reinforced learning, or robotics? We're seeing all of these kind of applications in the sector. Let me, you know, of course, you know, C3, I guess you guys are mainly doing, you know, deep learning there, you know, and of course we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing a lot of that either for detection, for recognition, image recognition, like, you know, systems to recognize, you know, the ripeness of a fruit, or, and we're also seeing it for prediction, which I think is what you guys at C3 are doing. So, you know, and look, I mean, the instruments that you're using are pretty much off the shelf, you know, when you're talking about you know, deep learning and AI. The question, as usual, is: do you have data? Do you have significant data? And do you have, you know, enough volume which is significant to the particular context? Because, you know, as Guy was saying before, conditions can change a lot, and especially depending on the kind of crop. And so, what we're seeing, most value is coming from companies that are capable of really focusing on one specific sector, or, you know, that have, you know, some characteristics that kind of make it easier to assemble data in a significant way. And I think this is, you know, this may sound reductive, but the truth is, again, you're talking about like 20 to 30% global GDP. And each, you know, even just, you know, an application that addresses the problem of strawberries is massive in size, right? And so what we're seeing, you know, what I believe are the most effective solutions that are appearing are exactly this: are companies that are really focusing on some specific farming needs, It can be, of course, prevention of pathogens. It can be irrigation. It can be, other things. And they're going very, very, let me say narrow, but that's not really narrow because these are big markets on, on some sub-segments. It can be, trees, as Guy was mentioning. It can be, non-seasonal trees, probably in that case, or seasonal trees. Each have their completely different issues. Of course, since data is so important, for example, seasonal cultivations have a very long cycle of validation because, you have to collect data and then go through the whole cycle. Maybe it's a yearly cycle. And so you literally can start learning only after a year, and probably needs even more iterations there, right? So, each area, in a certain sense, brings different needs. But of course, as usual, you have to have a coherent strategy in terms of data collection, of the significance of the signals that you are providing to the farmers. And let me add also one thing. It's very, very important to deliver real value to the farmer, to the producer. I mean, we see a lot of technology, a lot of over-engineered technology being shoveled through the throat of farmers. And we hear a lot of this, oh, farmers are slow adopters. No, I mean, farmers are typically slow adopters of bullshit. Sorry if you pass the expression. The truth is that farmers today are put under so much pressure, whether it's new pathogens, whether it's, of course, the direct climate problems related to water supply, or even just, the weather conditions that can have a tremendous impact on the development of plants and so on. So these guys, and also increasing regulation, all of this stuff is coming to them. They already operate in an industry which typically comes with very low margins. And so anything that can help them increase those margins, they're going to buy it immediately. Yeah. And in fact, what we're seeing is that the rates of adoption of these technologies, if they work, if they deliver the value for the farmer, are huge or massive now. So this is actually a very interesting market, especially the farming. But of course, AI is not just there. AI is, you can see it from systems that collect data in, raising cattle, pigs, chickens. I mean, these are all environments that you start putting sensors, they start to provide data that can be employed, to monitor, for example, typical issue that you have with animal, growing and so on is, again, pathogens, and, the trying to avoid the spread of disease, especially those kind of closed environments. And of course, if you can detect a sick animal before it spreads to the rest of, of the group, that means, for example, you can reduce the amount of pesticides that you're providing to these animals. And look, we're seeing all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, more kind of basic and also more kind of sophisticated. For example, systems that employ AI to determine biomass in a certain environment. Again, that's typical for animals and so on. And then you go, and then of course, if you're talking about robotics, that's a total new space, which is extremely interesting. Of course, we're seeing robots going to the farm and, trying at least to operate all those kind of different functions that typically were done by people. And then you're seeing also robots going into more downstream, for example, delivery. Delivery is a big thing when you're talking about robots in this moment, with some really big stories coming up. And it's, we know that in a few years, we'll see a lot of robots going around in our towns delivering stuff, not just food. With regards to robotics, I think that's where we're still seeing some challenges. And again, the challenge always breaks down to the real value that you're delivering to your customer, whoever that customer is. But especially when talking about farming, we see a lot of these robots that do picking or do weeding or do various functions there. Right. And I think the big issue today is that we are still struggling to see the business case that really returns value to a farmer whose alternative is, of course, call some people, try to pay them as low as possible, and do the job, right? So,
thank you.
This provides a bit of a picture.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because your point of view, I think it's very interesting. And I would like to talk now a little bit about sustainability. For those of you that are following the live stream and don't know nothing about Omdana, we are the largest platform in the world for artificial intelligence for good. And we are very invested in working on projects that have an environmental or social impact. And that's why we are also very interested, and we already did many projects in AgTech, with AgTech startup in precision farming. We did a project with the World Food Program to increase food security by improving crop yields in Nepal. But we are doing also projects with startups that are in the precision farming, like developing, as you were saying before, robots that go on the field and destroy harmful weeds without using pesticide, and this. And every project we work on, as we believe that has some kind of environmental or social impact, and we really believe that. So I wanted to know from your point of view on this point, like, how do you think that artificial intelligence can play a role to make the agriculture business more sustainable and less harmful for the environment? Guy, maybe you can give us your point of view.
So first, just to wrap up or comment on what Peter said before, I think that farmers are very, they love to adopt new things if it can help them. I think the new thing that is coming beyond machinery is basically fundamental things in information technology, and I think this is the huge change that is happening in the last few years. In the context of sustainability, I think the first step in order to make decisions that can optimize sustainability, you have to be able to measure what is going on. Okay, so if you want to make decisions that reduce the pesticides or things like that, you cannot do that if you just follow routines and protocols. Okay, you need to measure what is going on and then react to the data that you see, and then basically change your practice accordingly. Okay, so the first step where technology comes in, and also AI can take part of it, is the ability to measure or detect things that can help you collect data and detect things that can help you change your practice. And another important thing is that we see is that, especially in large farms, is that usually if you don't have data, what you do is you basically spread your resources, even your harmful resources, evenly, right? Because you don't know where things are. So the common sense here is to basically put 100% of your resources across 100% of your area in an evenly manner, whether it's your machinery, materials, manpower, and things like that. The moment you start to have data, you see that most of the problems are not are like in 20% of the area, and therefore you can be much more efficient and start to apply a more precision approach and modify the things that you are doing accordingly, and save money and save on material that can be harmful. Another important factor that we see is that once things are digital, it is much easier to share practices and insights between different farms that are not connected. Once things are not on paper, not in people's mind, but are digitized, and you can make analytics. Those analytics can be easily shared, and practices that are pro sustainability can also be shared much faster. And the last part that I want to mention relates to the fact that there are some impact areas in agriculture or adjacent to agriculture, like managed forestry, that are more tuned to environmental impact. And those areas, which are like every other area in agriculture, require digital transformation, I think they will have the most, I would say, benefit as far as sustainability and environmental impact when AI and technology are applied to those to this area.
Great. Peter, I wanted to ask you from like an investor point of view, is sustainability something that the investors are looking for when they invest in agtech startup, or like the main driver is always, like as you said, see if the solution is something that is going to have an impact in the margin or of the farmers or not?
Well, as I said before, of course, impact is becoming an extremely important element in the evaluation of startups. Some investors are doing just impact, and their main focus is impact. Now, as I said before, look, this is not just because people want to be nice and good. Of course, there are also, let's say, philanthropists that do that kind of investment. But the truth is that there is building awareness in the financial world. And when I say awareness, it's becoming pretty widespread now, that the greatest business opportunities in the next years and decades are going to be associated to the energy transition. There is a completely new industry that has to be built. There are completely new systems of production, supply, distribution that have to be put in place. And the fastest way you can get these done is, sorry to say, capitalism. I mean, once capitalism sees the incentives, sees the directions and the opportunities that are even provided by constraints. We always see regulation as something bad for capitalism. That's not true. I mean, capitalism hates dominant positions, and regulation often is doing just that. It's protecting existing interests. But now the trend in regulation is to completely transform the industries, which opens up new opportunities. All of this infrastructure that I meant before has to be built. New companies have to come out, new solutions, new patterns of consumption, and new ways of operating of businesses. This is a massive transformation that is going to interest the whole world, the whole industry, the whole economy. And of course, agriculture, which is one of the most negatively impactful practices in the current way of producing and distributing goods, is one of the prime targets. So look, impact is, of course, becoming extremely important in the valuation of startups in the space. But again, look, it's because we're looking at new paradigms, at the opportunities that come out from that. And of course, the ideal business model that you're looking for is someone that has metrics that, of course, generate growth, return, financial return for investors. But these are also associated to impact metrics. because the two are actually very connected. They're extremely connected. If you can, for example, reduce pesticide consumption by farmers, that has a direct impact on, the health of soil, the health of consumers, but it also has a direct impact on the farmers who can, first of all, reduce the cost of spraying pesticides, and secondly, also position their product, at a higher level as a call it organic if it is. Sometimes even if you reduce pesticides, you can't go organic, but anyway, it increases the perceived value of the product. So the two things are always very connected.
Yeah, that's an interesting point of view. I would like to come back to a point that you covered before, Peter, about that. I think it's also very interesting about the rate of adoption from farmers. So, if I understood well, your point of view is that when the solution is something that really brings some optimization, increasing the margin opportunity for farmers, they are ready to adopt it, and the rate of adoption is very fast. I would like to know also the point of view of Guy on this. What was your experience, and if there are some specific AI solutions that have been adopted more by farmers than not. For example, Peter said that robotics in farms is not yet adopted extensively because of its from an economical point of view doesn't make much sense in most cases. What is your point of view, Guy, on this?
Yeah, so well, from our experience, of course, we have experience from our customers. First, I think, like Peter said, the growers are very open to adopt new things. They used to experiment by themselves in different techniques, and anything that can help them improve their operational cost and improve their margins is something that they are looking for, and therefore they are very open. Okay, they are very open to new ideas. They also have patience. The fact that you grow something, it takes a whole season to get it, just build a kind of a state of mind of patience. So they don't look for, like, give me a result within 2 weeks or else go away. They have the patience to wait for a whole season, even more. It is true that they require evidence. Okay, there has to be some sort of an evidence of improvement. I think if they see that, things can go very fast. Okay, that's with regards to robotics. Actually, there is in our area there is a kind of a trend now of autonomous spraying that is coming very, very fast, and I think there you can really feel how it can improve the current operation, and therefore I think it is being adopted very fast these days. The challenge, though, is that everything that you need to prove has a long cycle, because the result is coming after a year or 2 years. It takes time to prove that you provided an ROI. It usually depends on the outcome at the end of the season, and you need to wait because before you can show evidence and outcomes, you cannot go to the next level. And this is a huge factor as far as the adoption rate, and this is the industry. Okay, you cannot. This is Mother Nature. You cannot speed her up. This is how it is. As far as AI goes and the way that they look, so AI, there are all sorts of AI, right? But I think that we are basically handling a visual inspection, things that relates to things that you can see with your eyes. And I think this is something that the growers really relate to, because many of the practices that you see are related to evaluating things with your eyes. and therefore when they see that a machine replaced that, and they know that maybe their iPhone can identify their face when it does the login, or then they can relate to this technology, that they understand it, it's very easy for them to adopt it. I think that things that are more on the predictive side, which require some statistical approach, this is something that is harder to grasp usually, and also it takes much more time. So, our strategy was first detect and then predict, right? So and then things. I think it's a good. I think it's a good way to step into the business of the grower and give him value from the get-go. So this is our experience.
I think time, of course, is where you have to have patient interpreters, you have to have patient investors.
Yeah.
Most of the successful companies that I know, it took them time. It took them time to really, prove the value. This is offset on the other side by referral, because a good thing again of farmers, they speak a lot. They like to look a lot at what their neighbor is doing, and we see the power of a referral in these models also extremely very strong compared to maybe other B2B industries. I mean, you can have referral rates like 4%, 5%, even 10% a month on the existing customer base. It's kind of ridiculous. So, because of course, and the farmers are, they know each other, and they see what's going on around in their territory, and so this is a nice element to it. There's an interesting side to adoption in the farm environment. So historically, the studies of adoption, the first study historically done on consumer adoption, and I'm not called customer adoption, was done in the Corn Belt in the US. It was started in the 1920s. It went on for, I think, 60 or 70 years. That's where, the famous S shape of adoption that everyone knows, with the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, the laggers. It all comes from that study over there. And that study was showing that these guys were really slow. It took them 70 years to go, if you compare to the cycles, technological cycles today, it was very, very slow. But there's a big difference from what was happening then and what's happening today. At the time, they were talking about incremental improvements on production coming from the use of different seeds, basically, more productive seeds. Today, what you're seeing is the impact on margins is massive, especially given the constraints on the business that farmers are experiencing. So the drive is very strong. Sometimes the pains that they have to sustain are really, really hard. Here in Italy, for example, if you go and speak to olive oil producers, I mean, people that grow trees, olives, on average, over the last 10 years, they've lost 50% of their production because of pathogens, primarily because of pathogens, because you've got these new pathogens coming in. So really, really bad effects on their business. So anything that can even improve by 10%, 20% is life-saving.
Good, thanks, Peter. I see that we got few questions from the people joining the live stream. So I think it's maybe we can take the opportunity to reply to a few of those questions. So the first question I got, I would like to address myself, is from Bayangme. Sorry if I didn't pronounce well your name, but basically he's asking how can we improve data collection, designing a model to integrate a small terrestrial robot which can work on the soil while collecting data from the soil, and what could be the great point in order to design that model. So I obviously we would need to know a little bit more on the kind of robot that you would like to design, but I can tell you that if you see on our website, on the website, we did recently a project with a Latvian startup called Wheatbot, and they did develop a terrestrial robot that is a very interesting project, because this robot basically goes on top of a carrots field with a computer vision algorithm that we have developed in Modena. The robot is able to detect and classify what are the harmful weeds in the what are the weeds from the carrots. And once the harmful weeds are detected, they are destroyed by laser. And the main point of using this robot is to reduce the use of pesticide on the field. So this is just one example of a project that was designed, and you know, on our website you find all the case studies, how the data collection was done. So check it out if you are interested. Then I would like to address the question from Abni Manu. Sorry with the names, guys. It's a bit hard sometimes. So he's asking, what are some of the players leading in the way in remote sensed AI-based yield forecasting, and what key variables are becoming more measurable and accurate? So I don't know, maybe Guy, if you want to
repeat what are the key again?
Yeah,
key players. I think key players that are providing yield prediction.
Yeah, and the remote sensing, AI based.
So who are the key players today? They are not yet the key players.
That's the interesting part. That's the interesting part, right? Yeah. There are no key players yet. Forecasting is very complicated, very complicated. Easier signaling. What we're seeing, you know, look, if you can signal 1 week or 2 weeks ahead that, you know, your plants are going to be infested by some pathogen,
yeah,
the returning value for the farmer is massive. So also going back to the question before, which I didn't really understand well. Look, guys, as usual, let's look at the need. Okay, with the farming world is so important. Go speak to the farmers, because technology today can do all kinds of crazy stuff, but you know, you really have to find what you know. You go and speak to a farmer, he'll tell you all kinds of problems they have, and if you can address any of those in a way that is economically sustainable to him, of course, you know, that's the starting point. Then you can assemble the technology that is needed.
That's very interesting.
I just want to add that in the area of food estimation or yield estimation, sometimes you see problems in the data infrastructure that basically allow the grower or the packing house or the distributor later on to make decisions. This is not related to AI, it's not related to algorithms, it's just a pure organization and pure information technology systems. You can see players that get different data sources to make a sell and buy decision, and every source looks differently. You get things on PDF, you get data that is messy. Just organizing the data and putting it in a unified format and platform can make a huge difference for those players. And so the industry, as far as yield prediction and all that stuff, is at really early stage. Okay, really early stage, and this is why there are no big players yet. Another thing that I want to mention is the fact that usually you make predictions a few months before picking or harvesting, as earliest as possible, right? This is the goal. And there are so many factors that are happening after the prediction that you don't have control. You don't have control over the weather and also the practices of the farmer, and those things can really make a difference at the end result. And it's very hard to model those things. Okay, it's very hard to predict what is going on, especially with this climate change. So there are real technological challenges in providing good prediction. Okay, so even if you do the best analysis, you can give bad results.
Yeah, again, the point is, what's the need? So for example, there are in certain industries and certain segments, for example, it's not so much important the volume of production or when in particular you're gonna go and collect and so on, but for example, the overall output of quality output. Okay, and so for example, there are companies that are trying to do exactly that. Think of wine. Every vineyard has its good year, bad year, and there are companies that are trying to do precisely this, based on what's happening on the soil, the weather. Is this going to be a good year or a bad year? And that's the kind of information which is very interesting for buyers. So again, what's the specific need? For example, knowing when it's the best time to collect can also be a very significant point of information, because if you can anticipate that, you can anticipate also and plan for the resources that you have to employ. Like in many industries, there's literally still people, and that typically when you are collecting, all the rest of the world around you is collecting. So if you can anticipate that and plan yourself better for that, is of course great value. But again, as Guy was saying, this is very hard stuff, because input number one, weather, and the weather is crazy.
Yeah. So it's a real technological challenge. It is like yield prediction in general, because of the many variables. I think that's a very interesting topic. Guy, do you there are other areas of field where we still have very strong technological challenges in precision farming, or you can give us also some example of something that is already well understood and well known, and for example, we have a question about crop types as classification in vegetable and small fruit. Is this a problem that is less challenging than yield prediction?
Yes, I think so. The detection problems, if those things you can identify as a human being with your eyes and can separate between different varieties, then it becomes a question of data collection, labeling, and then the modeling is relatively straightforward, much easier than prediction. So in those cases, we see it's not a huge challenge. There is a cost challenge though, because the data collection process it costs a lot. Okay, it's not an easy task. Usually, physically, you need to be at the field. You need to take imagery. You need to continuously improve your labeling. You need to organize it, and so that process is relatively costly. So it's a cost challenge. But as far as the ability to detect varieties, different symptoms, this is something that is very feasible.
Okay, that's interesting. So I think it's time to recap a little bit what we said. So both points of view, I think they were very, very interesting. And maybe Peter, you want to give us some final thought on what do you see the industry is going in the future, and how artificial intelligence can play a significant role?
Well, AI is going, to play a significant role as in every single component of this massive transition that we're going to go through, right? Of making a more sustainable industrial system in which we operate. And so opportunities are everywhere. Where you have data and when there are problems, that data, when it's well organized, can provide input. Robotics is certainly going to be a very interesting area of development. I think the big challenge there is, again, trying to figure out a solution that throughout the whole cost of ownership really becomes competitive to existing practices. That's really the big challenge. It's not really on the technology. Most of the technology is off the shelf. So yes, massive opportunities, but again, go identify the problem, the real problem. I mean, this is a problem that has to translate into bucks lost, bucks gained, because there are, and they're massive today. Okay, and they're going to become even bigger in the future, both because of the climate change, but also because of the regulation that's going to be put on on basically any element of the economic value chain. So great opportunity.
Thank you so much, Peter, for your point of view. Was very, very interesting. Guy, do you want to give us some final thought?
Yes, on the same trend. So I think for agriculture, agtech, it's a very exciting time. We had the pleasure to see other companies in Israel doing basically the same journey as we did, and basically evolving into significant clients and bringing in new models of new business models and new products. And I think it just accelerates itself, this process. So it's very nice to see it. I think that also we see the big players, the big growers, adopt digital technology, whether it's GIS systems, whether these are sensors or things like that. And this basically also push for more and more technology and help to organize data and create insights from companies like us and other companies in the area. So it's very, very exciting. AI is a significant part of it. I think but it's not the whole. Okay, there is it has to be connected into a end-to-end story that ties into the day-to-day operation of the growers. And if it connects well, then it, as Peter said at the beginning, it basically being adopted very, very easily.
Great.
And we mentioned only agri-tech, but
yeah,
there's also the rest. There's a lot happening also there. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, we will do another maybe on more on the consumer part, food delivery,
Consumers, supply chains. There's a lot.
Yeah, good topic for the future. Thank you so much again, Guy and Peter, for taking your time and for giving your very interesting point of view. Thank you everybody for following the live stream. We will do another one in December that specifically on health tech AI application. So we will keep you updated on our social media channel. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Peter.